Republican lawmakers now seeking to halt any future ransom payments to Iran. New legislation being introduced to tie the Obama administration's hands in future dealings with the Iranian regime. My next guest has introduced legislation in the House seeking the return of the $1.7 billion handed over to the Iranians. It would also stop any and all future money going to state sponsors of terrorism like, say, Iran. Joining me, Congressman Mike Pompeo, member of the House Intelligence Committee, Benghazi Select Committee. Congressman, great to have you with us. I want to get into the, well, let's start there. $1.7 billion, now we understand there could be more than $33 billion in cash and foreign currencies turned over by this president to the Iranian regime. Would that be envisioned in your legislation if that's the number?
Lou, thanks for having me on. It would, exactly. Look, it appears that the bottom number now is $1.7 billion. It could be $30 billion plus of taxpayer dollars that have been provided by this administration to the world's largest state sponsor of terror. And we know that this money will end up in the hands of terrorists all around the world. It'll put our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines at risk. We know it was done in cash, a way that makes it just as easy as pie to put that in places where the financial system can't see it. And so the legislation that I introduced, along with Senator Marco Rubio, would prevent this kind of thing from ever happening again and endeavor to get back that $1.7 billion.
The idea of ransom as a policy of this administration now, paying ransom to terrorists, is there anything that can be done about that, or will that be simply a matter of whom we elect on November 8th?
Lou, I think it mostly ends up being who we select to be our commander-in-chief and lead America. We can do things in Congress to try and prevent that. We can certainly shine a light on places where an administration has now put a price tag on every American. Our enemies know if you take an American with this administration in office, hold out long enough, you can get something in exchange for that. And so we'll try in Congress to slow that down and stop it, but ultimately the American people have to hold accountable leaders who have done this kind of thing.
Holding accountable. One of those people that the Congress has tried to hold accountable is the Secretary of State, who denied security. You picked the number a number of times for our consulate in Benghazi. We still don't have the facts. We don't even have all of the emails. And this administration and its former Secretary of State have stonewalled successfully the United States Congress for 4 years.
Lou, it is now. It's 4 years and a day since 4 Americans were murdered in Benghazi, Libya, when Secretary of State was at the helm. Secretary of State Clinton was at the helm. We made some progress in the course of our couple years investigating. We learned that there was no American aircraft inbound trying to save these men, and that they were dawdling in Washington, D.C. while people were under fire on the ground in Benghazi, Libya. But your point is well taken. It took us 2 years to get as far as we did, and now we know that we still don't have access to all of the documents that Secretary Clinton had on her private unsecure server. Goodness knows how many of those relate to things in Benghazi and things in Libya, things that the American people and the families of those 4 dead Americans have every right to see.
Let me ask you a question. If Donald Trump is elected president, will he and his administration have access to all that has been denied you and the rest of Congress and the Senate?
He'll certainly have access to a broader swath of documents than we have had access to before. His challenge will be much like the challenge we had on the Benghazi committee. Some of those documents aren't in possession of the United States government. Hillary Clinton took them and put them on her homebrew server, and as we now know, destroyed them using a very high-tech way to make sure that those documents could never be recovered. So I'm confident we'll get the ones that the government has. Those that she destroyed may well never see the light of day.
And what about the State Department, which seems to be, frankly, an enterprise that is wholly owned by the Clinton cartel, still defending her, still slow-walking you all, stonewalling the American people?
Yes, sir. You know, one of the things I think is most important to consider when folks go to the polls in November is that the crowd at the State Department under Secretary Clinton will be coming right back. It'll be the likes of Jake Sullivan and Cheryl Mills and Huma Abedin that repopulate a Clinton National Security Administration. We know what that meant for American national security. We know what that meant to our armed forces. It's the kind of thing that I think everyone should think about when they go to the polls and make sure that Hillary Clinton is never promoted to that highest office.
Congressman Mike Pompeo, so much to talk about, and unfortunately, tonight's a little time. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Lou.
Being
Have
with
a good
us.
evening.
Good to see you.
Thank you, sir.